Chapter 24. Are you nervous? Chad asked as they finished their Bible study. They had been doing one nightly since they arrived at his parents' house nearly a month before, but opted for an extra one this morning before the wedding. Chad was glad because Jess seemed preoccupied. Everything for the wedding is ready, and in just a few short hours we will be husband and wife. It's not that, she said with a shake of her head. Her sapphire eyes met his. I'm excited to be marrying you, but I'm worried about the hearing. I know I said I could do it, but now I'm not so sure. Chad sighed. Of course, the hearing against her stepfather was scheduled for just a few weeks after the wedding. She'd agreed to testify, but Chad knew it was only for Stephanie's sake. Jess held no desire to relive the abuse that had been inflicted on her. You know what we haven't done? He asked. We haven't prayed for him. Pray for him? Jess said with surprise. What good will that do? Chad smiled and took her hand. God has changed far harder hearts than your stepfather's, but it might also give you peace. Remember, God said to pray for our enemies. Perhaps praying for him will take away some of your nervousness. I'll try anything, Jess said. I don't want this cloud to ruin our wedding. Chad led the two of them in prayer for Jim and for Stephanie and Jess when they would have to testify. As he said amen, the feeling that he should continue praying for Jim settled on his shoulders, and Chad determined it would be his priority until the trial. Jess, you look so beautiful, Emily said as Jess surveyed herself in the mirror. Jess could hardly believe the transformation herself. Kendra and Emily had curled her hair and pinned it up in such a way that the shaved part was barely visible. Dark ringlets hung down and framed her face, and the touch of makeup Emily had applied completed the picture. You do too, Jess said, turning to her friend. I'm so glad you were able to come for this. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. A knock sounded and then the door cracked open. Kendra's face appeared in the space. You ready? It's time. As I'll ever be, Jess said. She thought she would be nervous marrying Chad, but she had woken this morning with a sense of peace, and everything had come together. The cake had arrived, the church was decorated, and everyone that was supposed to show up had. Jess grabbed her bouquet of red roses and sniffed them. She knew it was cliché, but red roses were the first flowers Chad had given her, and they seemed like a perfect fit for her wedding. Emily grabbed the two similar bouquets of white flowers and handed one to Kendra. The contrast was beautiful. The two girls in their red dresses with white roses, and Jess in her white dress with red roses. It had been Tanya's suggestion, and Jess was more than pleased with the outcome. Kendra led the way to the sanctuary doors where Chad's groomsmen waited. Jess knew it was unorthodox that she had no one to walk her down the aisle, but she'd never had a father figure growing up. However, God was her father, and she wanted the place beside her to belong to him, even if he couldn't be physically seen. As the music started, Kendra and Emily gave her a quick hug before taking the arm of their groomsmen. Jess closed her eyes and sent up a prayer. Lord, thank you for the many blessings you have given me. Thank you for taking our mistake and turning it into a gift. Lord, bless our marriage and help us be the husband and wife you want us to be. A feeling of warmth surrounded her like the warmth from a soft fire. Jess flashed one last smile heavenward, and then, when the music changed, she opened the door to the sanctuary. The crowd rose to their feet, and Jess blinked at the number of people. She had only invited a handful. Were all the rest of these Chad's family and friends? Her feet froze to the floor for a moment in fear, but then her eyes found Chad's and a small voice whispered in her head, Fear not, daughter, for I am with you. That was all Jess needed. She began the walk down the aisle toward the man she loved. Dearly beloved, the pastor began as she reached the front, we are gathered here today to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. The pastor continued, but Jess didn't hear the words as her focus was on Chad. She couldn't believe how much both of them had changed. I do, Chad said and placed the ring on her finger. Jess blinked, startled. Were they already at I do? She had missed more than she thought. Do you, Jess Peterson, take Chad Michaels as your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, in good times and bad, for as long as you both shall live? I do, Jess said, sliding Chad's ring on his finger. Then by the power vested to me by the great state of Texas, I now declare you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. As Chad's lips touched her own, the baby kicked in her stomach and Jess smiled. Everything was going to be okay.